Hello everyone and welcome back to Whiskey Wednesday. Today's something a little bit more, not unusual, but fun. This is part of a whiskey subscription from Beer52. A gentleman called John got in touch with me and said, would I be interested in sort of sampling and talking about this? And of course I said yes, because I'm a massive fan of grain whiskey. This is a blended grain whiskey put together by the folks over at Woven. For those of you that do not know what Woven is a particularly interesting blending company based in Edinburgh, Leith in particular, and they are putting together a whole host of classical, weird and wonderful, experimental, world-style blended whiskies. Two that come to mind, I think one is just called like New World, and it's Japanese, American, loads of different ryes put together. There's some other things in there too. The other one is called Hemisphere, which uses barrels that have housed smoked Manuka honey malt whiskey. Very affordable. So they put this together. I've got many notes here, so bear with me 1 second. Woven was founded by Peter Allison, Duncan McRae and Nick Ravenhall in 2020 to put together all of these unique blended whiskies. And when you purchase your little subscription, it comes with a magazine too. This is called Stramash magazine. And I must say, we're just sticking with the one page today to talk to you about this, but it is an incredibly detailed magazine. There's an article in there about living souls, which we've already covered. There's an article about grain whiskey and its history and how it's still underlooked as a style. But yeah, just a really, really well put together magazine that I've read back to front many a time. But let's chat to you about this liquid. This does come with a QR code. So if any of you want to freeze and scan that, feel free to. That will take you directly to beer52.com. They have given us a promotional code for this, which will appear now. Maybe. This essentially gives you whatever the newest bottle free. You do have to subscribe, but you can cancel at any time. All you'll pay for with your first subscription is the shipping, which is just under a tenner. But it will deliver a 35cl bottle of whiskey to your front door. This was number 3. I think they're on number 4 or 5 now. But anyway, let's chat to you about this whiskey and the wonderful things of grain. This is called, well, it's not called this, but it's called Apera, Tawny and New Oak casks. And I will break out my best sort of Jackanory voice. This blend was built around single grain whiskey from the lowlands, to which we added casks of well-matured mid-90s era Invergordon and Strathclyde. Says co-founder Peter Allison, very old sherry cask matured grain whiskey comes from Invergordon and the sadly closed Port Dundas distillery, adding a generous warming longevity to the finish. After blending, we married the liquid in a combination of Australian Apera casks and New Oak casks before putting it back together to put in the bottle. Apera casks, for those of you that are fans of Starward and probably other Australian whiskies, Apera is essentially sherry, but it's from Australia. They can't legally call it sherry because that's a protected term, so instead they call it Apera, which is short for aperitif. So we've got some pretty interesting cask selections in this. We don't know of the age, we've just told well-matured mid-90s products. So at most, we're looking, I mean, at the least, if we take mid-90s as 1995, this is 30-year-old liquid. At its oldest. It does have, oh, nearly knocked the glass out of my hand, a nice kind of little orange, almost pinkish hue to it, which I'm assuming we're getting from the Apera. I'm a fan of grain anyway. I'm a fan of Woven. We do have some of their bottles over there, which I've recently bought, which we will review. Ooh, what a nose. One thing I've deliberately not paid a lot of attention to is this little flavour chart on the back of this, which gives you an idea of what kind of profile you're looking for. As you can see, there's no peat. But I've tried to avoid looking at that just to stop power of persuasion in my own head. But let's dive into this grain. It is bottled at 46%. It is natural colour and it is non-chill filtered. But I say again, the subscription code will pop up at the end. Beer52's website is in a little bio below. If you do want to go over there, your first subscription is essentially sort of free. You just have to pay for shipping. And then you can cancel whenever you want. But let's taste and smell this all the way around. Classic grainy nose. We've got these sort of vanilla-y, buttercream, fresh pastry out of the oven. You get a little bit of sherry, I must say. It is going to be difficult to try and pick out grain distillates with this. I forgot there was sherry in it. So the sherry and the Apera are probably add into that nice subtle colour. You may be able to hear the dog snoring again. There's a very sort of grassy... I've literally just come back from taking the dog for a walk, and it's a wonderfully sunny day here in Manchester, and it reminds me of like kind of the freshly cut grass. Sweet things on a picnic. There's a very Victoria sponge cake note to it, but there's also something a little bit more unusual in that. For those of you familiar with UK soft drinks, there is a very famous soft drink in the UK called dandelion and burdock, which is made using dandelion and burdock roots. It's essentially a British type of cola. This has that aroma to it. And then with all the sweet things, there's even like a marzipan-y almond, like Dr. Pepper kind of note. Let's taste it. Ooh, there are some fun flavours in that. They really start to pop at the end. We will taste it again in just a second. This camera's still a bit bent. Very mouth-watering. You do get this pineapple and peaches from a tin soaked in syrup. It kind of runs through all of it. The level of cask influence, it's not woody, but it's spicy. It's like gently spicy. It kind of fizzes all around the sides of your tongue. Again, we've got the buttercream, we've got the vanilla, there's a toffee note. The sherry and the Apera really appear right at the end. Literally just as you go, okay, I'm kind of done with this. You get this like rum and raisin, cinder toffee, like honeycomb kind of thing to it. I'll see if that happens again. You do get the rum and raisin thing at the end again. In the middle this time, some slightly more oak driven notes. Something slightly bitter, almost like oh actually now all I taste is ginger. It's got that soft heat of ginger. With the peach thing and the pineapple and the rum and raisin, that is particularly delicious. Yeah, those sort of mid-palate bitter notes, which are kind of coming back around now with the oakiness on the finish, really reminds me of Angostura bitters. That kind of gingery, gentian root, earthy, vague licorice. Does a little bit of everything spice. It really reminds me of that. I've never really taken part in a whiskey subscription before, so this is a first for me. I'm intrigued to see what number 4 and number 5 is. Or whatever the most recent one is, because I've not actually signed up yet. But like I said, if you folks do want to, code is there and below. Overall, I'm going to give this like a 7. I think this is a really fun way to try it all grain without having to buy a single barrel at cash strength, which you might not necessarily like. And those can typically be anywhere from about 100. I mean, if you're talking, if this is at its oldest 30 years old, unsure of the youngest stock, even so, if you're talking about a 30-year-old age-dated single grain, we're still in at 100, 125, 150. Sometimes they can go even higher, depending on if the distillery is open or closed. If you're a fan of Compass Box hedonism, you'll probably really enjoy this as like maybe a mid-break to make sure you don't drink all of your hedonism, which you can't really source as a standard bottling anymore. But overall, very tasty. I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. Fair play to the folks at Beer52 and Woven, because that is particularly delicious. But I cannot emphasise enough, the whiskey's cool and the subscription's cool. That magazine If you folks want to know more about whiskey and the history of whiskey and all of the fun finite little points of whiskey and its history, subscribe purely for this. You just get the whiskey as a bonus. But overall, I'm going to give the Woven No. 3 blend for Beer52 a 7 out of 10. I'm going to sort this camera out, and I'll see you next week for something very, very exciting. Something I got in advance, but I think has already now gone on full sale. But nonetheless, we might have the first review of it, but I'll see you next week. Cheers.